Well, who's
You know?
controlling the matrix?
Do you really want me to say on your
Yeah,
show?
100%.
Ancient beings who are probably not all human. They have a lot of knowledge. They have a lot of know how. They have a lot of technology. But one thing that they don't have the ability to create. Hi, everyone. I'm Catrima Gabrielle, and this is Your Superior Self with Trey Downs.
Catrima, thank you so much for
Okay.
taking the time. You've been very busy. You've been living in essentially an upheaval of society. How are you? Checking in with you, dropping in with you. How are you right now?
I'm good considering what's going on around me. It's been very unsettling, but that's part of the process of what's happening all over the world at the moment. So I'm
Sure.
taking it my stride. Yeah,
So what's
yeah.
happening in what happened in Bangladesh?
Well, there's been a lot of conflict with the students of the nation regarding a quota system which the government has implemented, where basically all the government's people and the high flyers get all the jobs. And there's a lot of unemployment in the country. And it's the general public and the students specifically who are wanting a fair share at the job market. And most of the government jobs are taken by people who are chosen, chosen in the wrong way, I might say. But yeah, that's started off pretty small scale, but it escalated very, very fast. Um, so as of today, actually yesterday, the Prime Minister has absconded, let go of her crown, finally after I think 15 years, and she's run away. That's
Wow.
her. Yeah.
Like so when someone who is doing the work like yourself, living in this environment, like how do you stay
Mhm.
connected to your essence? How do you stay connected to, I don't know, your spirituality?
It's been a process, Trey. It's been a process of the last 30 years where was like everybody else. I'm basically, always looking at the external world to give me an uplift. And over the course of the last 30 years, um, things have happened to me in a way where I've had to go inside of myself. And I think this is what most people are finding out they're also having to do. And I encourage that. Staying connected, it's a breeze when you get enough practice. And actually, once you stay connected, it's difficult to get out of that essence of being connected to spirituality, to yourself. Spirit means who you are, what you are. You are, spirit, energy. And people, I think, have been conditioned so much to live as a physicality, as a physical body with the external things going on, and we forget who we are. And I think once you smell the spirituality, you don't want to leave that garden. It smells too good.
Sure.
So it gets
Understand.
easier as you do it more. Yeah.
Well, has this path always been like this for you? Like, how did you start out? Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Can you imagine? We shouldn't joke about it because it is what it is. But basically, you get very muscly men who show off their body, and then you get the very beautiful blonde women who show off their figures and their hair. I was one of those Asian girls with brown hair, not blonde, but I was very into the external. Um, People would never see me walk, 2 inches without high heels on. I still like to look good. I still like to do myself up, but it's more for me now rather than because of lack of confidence and having to be a doll-like creature for external purposes. It's more for me, and I've become completely different internally, and everything I used to do before was for the outside world. And everything now has changed to the point where I'm just doing it for myself. And it feels good.
yeah.
So
I
much
just
good.
so find it so fascinating. Like, living in the United States, right? Like, and just living in like the unrest, the political stories and narratives that are going around, and then where
Mm.
you're at, listening to that and seeing a lot of the students uprise and stand for what they believe in, and then also witnessing a lot of death surrounding that. I mean,
Yeah,
we are presented with hard truth of reality in which we live, right? And so how
yeah,
do you find grounding in yourself and that authentic self to like continue to pursue your path, to, see the plays that are unfolding in your reality,
yeah,
to really find that power within to like continue on your mission, on your path, on that connection, and to really stay centered within your own truth and what you know to be the truth of which you really just kind of
yeah,
present to the world,
yeah. I think for me personally, it's not always been easy. And as well as the external world, the global, the world itself, all the things that's going on in the political scene and things like that, it is what it is. But I think even on a personal level, I've been through such a journey. It's made me grow over time, and it's taken me a while. It's not easy, Trey. It's taken me a while. But what happened with me personally was, I think, not just with me, but I think everybody's tested to see where they're at. And when you are not where you're meant to be, you're tested again and again. And that's what happened when I'm a very slow learner. Initially, I was a very slow learner. I've learned to pick things up a lot faster. But initially, when you do something wrong and you think, right, okay, I'm never going to do that again. And then you do it again because you haven't learned your lesson. I kept repeating, mistakes all the time. And now I realize they weren't mistakes. They were meant to happen because I was supposed to learn that lesson better. Maybe I passed it, say, 50%, and then it was meant to be higher marks for me. So I was retested with the same thing. It's funny how the same kind of things happen with different people. So now I think I'm at that point where I know I'm being tested, and before I take the test, I take a deep breath and I know I'm going to pass it. So staying connected has been almost like the hardest thing ever to begin with. But honestly, what I tell people is when you keep on diligently staying connected, yeah, you're going to have mishaps here and there. But when you really authentically try, you get given guidance. And that's what I got, heavily being guided throughout my journey, and which I found really extraordinary because I thought I'm going to have to do this alone. But I never felt alone when I was going through what I was going through. And I've been through quite a journey, became a single mother at the age of 31, 32 with a 2-year-old, made other relationship misjudgments, made mistakes. And I was that typical, everybody was like that. I think everybody's like that at some point where you're blaming everybody else, but you're never looking at yourself. And it took me many years to understand that it was nobody else's fault but my own. Nobody held a gun to me to say, you've got to do this. I chose to do certain things which weren't great for me. And I think now I realize, well, I've realized, over the last 10 years that you do what you do because sometimes you may even know that you're making a mistake, but you're meant to make that mistake in order to learn from that mistake. You can't learn when you're doing everything breezily and getting things right. How can you learn through doing all the right things? You've got to fall into potholes, haven't you,
Sure.
in order to know, crawl out again.
100%. So, like, can we dive deep into your story a little bit? Like, what did that look like? You were a single mom in your
Yeah.
30s, but I mean, how did that transpire? Like, what was the fear that you like felt in that transition, and like, what gave you strength during those moments?
I didn't think I had the strength, to be very honest with you. I was that very traditional Asian girl. My parents were very broad minded. They never pushed me into any arranged marriage or anything like that. So I didn't have arranged marriage. I had a love marriage. And I was with my husband, ex husband, for coming 13 years, I think, 10, 12. I've forgotten. I don't recall numbers anymore, the way things have changed for me. But yeah, I got married, I got divorced where after 10, 12 years of being with him. And by that time, I had my daughter who was coming up to 2 years old. And at that time, Trey, I was a completely different personality. I didn't think I could operate without a partner, without a husband or a boyfriend. I was always looking to find someone to subsidize me, to help me, to be next to me. I was not aware that, I had all the strength within me, but I just didn't know that at that time. So I think my biggest lesson was that every one of us are given things which we think we can't do. And for me, I never thought I could do it alone. And of course, I didn't do it alone. I made other mistakes where relationships are concerned. But eventually, I came to a point where I said to myself, it's me on my own, or the perfect guy who is meant to be with me, who understands me in the way I am. So I'm still on that path. I think even if you're married, whoever is with whoever, whichever partner that they've chosen, I think it's important to recognize that you can do what you're doing despite anyone being with you or not. It's always nice to have that person next to you, the person who understands you, gets you on that level that you think you understand yourself. But if you do have that person, it's important to recognize that you have yourself first. And if that person happens to leave or you happen to leave, you're not going to fall apart. And I know the first time I fell apart when I got divorced, it's never going to happen again. I may be on my own, but I'm not going to be that person who had such a hard time crawling out of the darkness. That was my life at that point. Yeah.
It's so fascinating because like we fall into these programs and rules of like what society says we need to live by, and you need to
Yeah.
be, especially in our tradition, like you need to have a family, you need to work a job, you need to buy a house, you need to pay a mortgage, you need to buy a car,
Yeah.
you need to have kids, you need to do this, you need to have blah, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then we start awakening to who we truly are or what we are. We don't really know what that looks like, but like, there's a pull from somewhere that is saying this isn't it. And it's like, this insatiable hunger for something more, and
Yeah.
not material, but like more meaningful, like
I
almost a pull to get to know yourself more, or what you're doing, like a realization of like what you're truly doing isn't going to make you happy. And then like they call it a midlife crisis, but I think it's more or less like you coming back to yourself. Like, I mean, that's what fascinates me about people is like everybody feels this pull, but we continue to numb ourselves in different ways, either addiction or just completely ignoring it, or
Yeah.
disassociation to the thought of like, going within and finding our truth. And
Mm.
what is your advice to people that are going through that now? Because I mean, people change, like you say, you're
Mm.
not the same person you were during that marriage. And
Mm.
for what, you had a divorce for whatever reason, but like people are scared to look at that. Like, I'm changing. I don't know why. Like, I can't have the same
Mm.
conversations. I can't be in the same room as people. I just have a different, totally perception of reality. Like,
Mm.
how do you walk people through that process, that transition to get to the other side?
I think it's an automatic response for people to distract themselves. I think they are so afraid of what they're going to find within them. It's something that they do. They go out with friends, they pick up their phone, they go out and drink and go clubbing or whatever. None of those things are bad things. They're great things to, pass your time. But when you get into the habit of running away every time you fall into some kind of a problem within yourself, I think that's the danger. You're never going to grow if you don't sit with yourself. It's literally just sitting with yourself and trying to understand what you're going through. And a lot of people also, even, I have clients coming to me and say, I try and work through my problems and I talk it out with my friends. The thing is, talking it out with your friends is not going to help. You have to talk it out with yourself. You've got to have a dialogue with yourself, because you're the only person who will truly understand who you are, what you're all about, because we have hidden parts of ourselves from other people. Our closest loved ones don't know who we are, because we've got that inner self that is so deep in the recesses of who we are. And I think that's the part where you need to delve in. And people who are distracting themselves are actually running away. They're just delaying it. And like I've said earlier, when you get the whiff of that smell of that peace, of connection, it's the same thing. When you get a whiff of the smell of who you are, you want to keep going back, because you may not like a lot of things about yourself, but there are parts of you that crave you to dig deeper. And I think that comes from your higher self. It comes from your higher self, because the thing that your higher self wants more than anything is for you to connect. Because from what I've found, Trey, from my own understanding and downloads that I get on such a regular basis, I find that, there's a saying that we are whole and complete as we are. It's absolute rubbish as far as I'm concerned. We are not whole and complete as we are, because if we were, would we have all the problems that we go through, ourselves internally? If we were whole and complete and blessed with everything that we are meant to be and we are, we wouldn't have the baggages, the trauma, the total disarray of our lives sometimes. And from what I've learned, our higher self cannot be complete until we join, because we are part of that. All our wisdom, our higher self is waiting for us. That's why we get so much guidance, so much motivation, so much wisdom coming in to teach us how to connect. And the subconscious mind is such a powerful area. I think we operate consciously. We're kind of living from the part of our mind that operates in a sort of meticulous way, where we kind of analyze things. We live analytically. We try and make sense of everything. But I would ask people to not make sense of everything, because when you let go of the data of black and white and this is meant to be this, and you stop reasoning things like that, you actually open up the door to a whole way of looking at things. And that's where the true magic lies. And that's where I found solace when I really needed. Because I'm a Virgo, I'm very grounded anyway, but I'm also very analytical. So that was getting in the way for me a lot, because I'm a typical Virgo. And although I don't completely believe in all the stars and everything, because I think there's so much that's hidden from us, so much truth is hidden from us. We take what we kind of align with, but sometimes we tend to take what we like to align with rather than the truth, because it's more comfortable. So I've learned to go on the path of discomfort more often than not, because that's where the truth actually lies. Sometimes the truth is not very easy to hear, and because of that, people shy away and they go towards something that's much more tasty. We want to go towards things that make us feel better, but sometimes the truth doesn't make us feel better initially, until you understand it and you completely dissolve yourself in that, and then you start to wear the truth. And for me, it's the only part that's black and white for me is truth and lies. I cannot tolerate lies. And so some people say, well, you've got your truth, Catrima, this is my truth. And I agree with that, that's fine. But actually, universal truth is universal truth. There is no my truth and your truth there. It's just one truth. You cannot, for instance, connect love and fear together. And some people say, well, if you don't fear losing what you love, then it's not true love. And I don't believe that you can integrate fear and love together. There is no fear in love. If you're fearing love or loving someone, you're fearing loving someone, then there's a block. You need to work through that, because love, how can you fear love? Then you need to work on yourself, and maybe work on some of the traumas that's making you feel fearful with love.
Very powerful. Yeah, for sure. I think, as human beings, we always go towards what feels pleasant and feels great. And then we always run from the discomfort, right?
Yeah.
And that's where you really find out who you are. Like, what are you made of? Like, what is there in the trauma to learn from? What have you been hiding from? And to accept that and to embrace that is very tough. But there's growth in that, and that's when you find your truth. And I think that's what you're speaking to.
Mm.
We had many conversations, and when we connected, you said something that really caught my eye. You were like, "I don't abide by man-made time. Like I'm living in, I don't know, I guess a different dimension, essentially. Like, so how do you experience reality? Like, you talked about some of your psychic gifts with me. I want to know, like, how do you perceive time? Do you perceive time, and like, where is it that you, I guess, observe this reality from?
I think, Trey, more and more, I'm kind of on a timeline that even I kind of feel it's a new place for me. I think I've been skipping in and out of different timelines for quite a number of years now. And now I feel I'm mostly living on a timeline that other people cannot associate with me, because I've had quite a number of instances where I've kind of disappeared. Um, and I've come back, say, for instance, I think I told you this story when we were talking on the phone, where I had a hot cup of tea and my lipstick, exactly like this actually, my lipstick was on the cup and the cup was full. And it was around 9 o'clock in the evening. And I'd had a shower and my hair was wet. So I sat down to have this cup of tea, and my hair was wet, dripping. I'd just come out of the shower. I thought I'd have the cup of tea and then I'd go and blow dry my hair and stuff. But it was 9 o'clock. By the time I was back, I don't know where I went. By the time I was back, it was 11 o'clock, and my tea was still hot, and my hair was still wet. And I was under the fan in Bangladesh. You know, in Dhaka, you have the AC on and the fan on and stuff. My hair was still wet. My tea was piping hot, but it was from 9 till 11. And I say it wasn't me just imagining it, because my husband had gone out for a walk. He goes for a walk in the evenings, and that particular night it was pretty late, and he'd also gone to meet his nephew and his friends. And he came back and it was 11 o'clock, and he says, "What are you doing so late, sitting here with dripping wet hair?" And it was weird. But I know he said goodbye, he left, and it was that time. And then I don't know whether I'm skipping time or whether time is kind of playing jokes on me. But I think time is very man-made. I think there is no time. It's a linear thing. I mean, people think it's like past, present, and future. Everything has already happened that's meant to happen in the future. I think it's already happened. We just haven't traveled through it. So time is quite warped. I think it's a spiral more than anything else. It's not a straight line, you know,
Hmm.
past, present, and future. I think it goes up. That's why sometimes you go down and you go back. I mean, if you think about it, Trey, when you think about a past memory and you so clearly remember everything, you're going back in time. You
Hmm.
may not be physically going there, but it's also been actually said. Bruce Lipton says it, and also there's another gentleman who says that every time you take your memory back to a past event, you're literally taking your cells, your physical body to that event, because it affects you on a mental level. You get anxious in your body when you think about a trauma in the past. So you're going back in the past with your body, actually, because you're coming back with that feeling of palpitation and nervousness and sweating. So I think it's a lot more than what we know. And I think a lot of things have been hidden from us. It's known, but it's hidden, because if we are given all the information that we are meant to know, we will recognize just how powerful we are. And we're not meant to know how powerful we are. So we've been kept shut down, suppressed, so that we don't become aware of the power within us. And some of us, me included, before, I used to get very embarrassed about saying what I could do and what I couldn't do. I no longer feel embarrassed about it, because I'm proud of how hard I've worked on myself. And I used to think people are going to think I'm conceited, or people are going to think I'm all that. It doesn't matter what they think. I know I'm not. I know I'm not conceited. I'm not talking from an egoistical kind of point of view. I'm talking from truth that I've been through, and I'm no longer willing to hide it because what people will think, you know. So
Well,
yeah,
let me
I
stop
think
you
that.
right there because like now I'm so curious. Like, and if I don't ask, I will forget. So there's two questions here, and I'll ask the first one first. Like, what powers can you like perform? Like, what do you got? Like, what kind of arsenal do you have psychically that you can tap
Um,
into?
I think so many people are psychic. I think everybody is psychic. This is one of our superpowers. People just don't know how to uncover it and how to bring it out and use it. I didn't know. It came out accidentally. So I'm very telepathic. I can pick up the thoughts of a person who's sitting in the other side of the world by just connecting with that person. I used to be able to just connect with a photo, but now I don't need a photo. I can just hear the person's name. If somebody tells me, I kind of need a little bit of a description. This is purely for my, I think, for my own understanding of who I'm connecting with. And I'm able to describe that person pretty accurately. And the other thing, oops, something's come up on my, let me just cancel that out. Um, the other thing that people try, when I say I'm quite telepathic, I'm very telepathic, okay? Let me just put it out there. I'm very telepathic. I know what people are thinking, what their traumas are. This is how I work as a therapist. Instead of having a long conversations about what you've gone through, what's happened to you in the past, I kind of connect and I can kind of find what's happened to that person from their aura. And so people used to say, "So tell me, what did I have for breakfast?" And initially, it used to quite throw me, but now I say I have no idea and I have no care about what you had for breakfast because that's not relevant. When people try and test your magic, it's literally they're doing it for their own, maybe they don't believe it. And it's okay if they don't, but they certainly will not be able to test me because it won't work. These things are not there as a joke or a plaything, you know. Although I have done a lot of psychic parties, had a lot of fun, but that's a different thing. It's when somebody is not open minded enough to understand that even whoever's questioning you has that power. But the reason they're not able to access it is because they don't believe it. So I'm not saying everyone has to believe me, but I think everybody needs to understand themselves and what they're capable of, because I can bet you anything. If you truly know who you are, you will know what your powers are,
Hmm,
for
I love
sure.
that.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. Belief has a lot to do with it, and I think me personally, like, to your point, I think you're picking up on like subconscious thoughts, like what are radiating behind the scenes as opposed to like a conscious thought. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like, subconsciously we're radiating, out into our reality and becoming a magnet for those things. But I mean, I think you're picking up on where we're at and like, unconsciously what's going on behind the scenes. We think our conscious mind is what's running the show. When actuality, it's only like 1% of really who we truly are. A lot of that is programming of our condition, and our
Yeah.
conditioning of our environment, and we're responding in a way that we think is us, but in actuality, it's totally not. Like, like that 1% of us
Yeah.
think we're totally in control when in actuality, we're just kind of reacting to our own
Yeah.
experiences and what we've experienced previous to this. So I think the
Yeah.
game is in trying to rewire your brain and try to come up with something totally new and be aware
Hmm.
of like the programming that you've had and the thought patterns that you previously have had and how you molded your brain into something, and then like really trying to change that and then becoming something totally new. Like, instead of, in going into an experience, like there's probabilities of how I would react to a certain situation, even emotionally, how I
Trey,
would.
you're really cutting out a lot, so I didn't understand parts of your question. Would you be able to repeat that?
Sure. So I was just saying how in certain situations and environments, like there's a probability of how I would react because of
Yeah.
my programming and wiring of my brain. If you totally want to change that in someone or something, like you need to change your behavior or approach to that.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like becoming more aware of who you are as an individual, I think
Yeah.
is the name of the game. And then catching yourself in that awareness of saying like, all right, the old Trey would react to this environment or to this
Yeah.
situation this way. How does the new Trey that I want to become would react? And yeah, go ahead. You want
I,
to say something?
yeah, I think what I want to say, Trey, and I'm going to be really harsh here. I think the majority of people um, don't want to know who they are, and I think they're just happy living on the surface of life, and they feel safe, they feel good, they've got their jobs, they've got their families, they've got their hobbies and the things that they do for entertainment. They don't want to delve any more deeper than that, and that's okay, because not everybody's going to be wanting to find out whether they're reacting or responding, or whether they're doing the right thing or wrong thing. But the thing is, the majority of people on this planet have issues and have problems, but they're willing to go through those problems and live through those problems and again and again and again without rectifying anything. And there's nothing we can do about that. I think people have to be in such a level of pain to want to do something to change it. And some people go through no pain and they want to know more about themselves and have a better way of existing, of living. So you have all kinds of people. The people that have this inner awareness of who they are and what they can become, I found are the people who have probably lived many lives. And sometimes you have people who have completely lost their memory of who they are, even in this lifetime. I'm not even talking about past lifetimes. In this lifetime, when I ask them, just out of interest, when I ask someone I meet, so how was your childhood? What did you do growing up? Don't know. Yeah, I can't remember. But anyway, never mind. So they don't even want to go there. And that's when I know, okay, I'm probably going to have a great time with this guy or this person, this woman, having fun with this person, because I don't need to go that deep. So you have all kinds of people that you can interact with, knowing that I can tell straight away how deep a person is just by their energy. And because, Trey, we're all connected, um, the majority of people can understand who that person is that's walking in through the door without even speaking a word, but they don't know how to do that. uh, I didn't know. I lived 32 years of my life, 35 years of my life without knowing. And I was living on a very shallow existence until I woke up and I thought, oh my goodness, I can really live a different way of life. But even then, I made so many mistakes because I was still learning. I was still learning. I was still learning. But like you said, well, how do you know what your true gifts are? I think, generally speaking, we all have these gifts, and some are better at one or two of these and not so great on the. It's like an athlete. You might be a great sprinter, but you might not be such a great marathon runner. You might be a great roller skater, but you might not be great on ice skating. So it's practice as well. You could be a good runner, and you could be a good sprinter and run marathons. It's your practicing and wanting the desire to do more. I think I could have been a better psychic, but I didn't go that way. I am psychic, but I'm better at telepathy. I'm better at influencing the mind, playing with the energy of the mind to make things happen. Um, Psychic awareness didn't really interest me that much because it takes away people's free will. When you tell them, look, this is going to happen to you, that's going to happen to you, they kind of obsess about that. And something better might have happened for them if I hadn't said that. So I think predicting the future, it's up to a point. I think it's very relevant when you're doing therapy, but I think predicting everything for somebody will really not make them achieve more.
Mm.
I want people to hit their potential and go beyond that, rather than I'm telling you this, but you know what? You could have that. But because you've heard me say you're going to have this, you're just going to aim for that. You're not going to go for actually what you're truly meant to have.
Yeah, I always wonder about that, like with psychics, if they're really seeing the probability or they're setting you up for a belief. You know what I mean? Like of
Yeah.
this is going to happen for you, and you're like, oh, I want that. So now I'm going to, obviously focus on it. And now I'm creating a belief that I'm going to have it. And so then you
Yeah.
collapse that
I
timeline.
think it's a bit of both. I think it's a bit of both. I think it's when you plant a seed, that seed will grow. And on top of that, if you take action, it'll grow even more.
Sure.
So some people kind of think that I'm just going to sit there. I've heard that psychic tell me it's going to happen, so I'll wait for it to happen. It'll never happen like that. You've got to take the action.
Sure.
You've also got to grow. You've got to invite it in. It's not just a matter of waiting and happening without you dancing, without you moving. Yeah.
I'm so interested in like, where you went that night. Like I just keep the little thought form keeps poking me in the back of the head saying, ask more, go deeper. So like when you got out of the shower and you had your tea at 9 o'clock, like you don't
Mm.
remember exactly where you went? Like were you off in your imagination or a different dimension? Like, do you remember any of that experience?
That was part of something that has been happening since 2007, I think, every year. And it always happened in winter. In the UK, I was brought up in the UK all my life. It started happening in December, where I would lose literally 16 or 18 hours of my day. I didn't know where I was. I mean, I'd be at home. I'm physically at home, but my mind would be gone. I could not remember what would happen over the last, what happened in the last 16, 18 hours. And then the first time it happened, I was actually in Iceland. People who live in the UK will know the shop Iceland. I was there shopping for my parents, and I collapsed. I collapsed in the aisle, and they put me. They picked me up and they took me into the storeroom in the back of the shop, and they sat me there. And they called. They said, I literally collapsed and I fainted. And when I came round, they said we're calling the ambulance. I said, no, 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 please don't call the ambulance. My first thought was my parents would be worried sick if they saw me drive up in an ambulance in hospital. And I mean, it's just going too far. I didn't want, and I felt okay. The funny thing is, as soon as I opened my eyes, I felt fine. So I asked them not to call the ambulance. I can't believe what I did. I paid for the shopping and I went into my car and I drove to my parents' place with their shopping. And as I was going, they lived on the third floor. And as I was walking up the stairs, I was getting more and more tired. And by the time I got to their front door of the flat, I kind of half collapsed. And my parents, took me into the bedroom and lay me down, asked me what had happened. And I said, I had to tell them, I said, I collapsed in the shop and it's happening again. They called the ambulance. They called the ambulance and they came. And Trey, funny thing is, they checked me as much as they could from their equipment in the ambulance. They didn't know what had happened to me. My pulse was fine. My blood pressure was fine. My blood sugar level was fine. Everything was great. But the right side of my body was completely numb. So it looked like a stroke, but none of the numbers of my body, the blood pressure, none of it kind of signposted that it was a stroke. They just didn't know. They even stuck pins into my toes to see if I would feel them, and I didn't feel them. So after that, they asked me to go into hospital, and I refused. And I said, look, I'm feeling fine. I don't want to go. So I didn't go. But since that year, every year for the next 6 or 7 years, it happened every year, except instead of happening in December, it moved to January and then moved to February. And then each year I got used to the fact that it's going to happen this month. I know this is going to happen. It's been a year. It's going to happen. And then I started to read it and I knew. And then I started to get downloads, which would warn me about the date. So they wouldn't tell me too far ahead, but they'd tell me maybe a day before or even 12 hours before. Be safe, be home, get the duvet downstairs. And I'd put the duvet downstairs, have a jug of water there. And the way I would know that I had gone, my mind had disappeared somewhere, was I'd find out the next day that I had gone to the bathroom. There was water in the sink, the towel was on the floor, I'd drunk some water, I'd done all that, but I just wasn't there. I don't know. I still don't know. But my brother seems to think that maybe I was downloaded with all the information that I need now, all the information that I pick up just like that when I'm sitting with a client, or about the world and about, what happened in Bangladesh. All of this, I've been talking about it for 5 years. And there was no whiff of any trouble that this would happen. And everyone thought I was cuckoo and said, what do you know? You don't even live here. How can you even know about the politics here? But I said, everything that's going to happen that has happened here now, I talked about it 5 years ago.
Really?
So maybe all of this I predicted. My closest friends, my family, even my clients know. I've talked about it. I've warned them. I warned them about the financial crisis 5 years ago when I was talking about this, and it's happening now. I told them about the virus and all of that coming before it came. So maybe I'd been given all this information for the time I needed to know.
Sure.
Maybe I'm filled with information that I don't need to know now, but I will need to know as we come to
Well,
that
now I'm
time.
curious. Like, what are we looking at here? Like, where are we headed to? What's going on? Like, what are your
Yeah.
what are your downloads telling you?
Well, I think everything that's happening now, Trey, we just have to observe, and whether we like it or not, things are going to happen. Things are going to happen. Things are turning out the way they are because they need to. The old system needs to go. And you cannot have a new system come in, which is not corrupt, which is loving, which is fearless. This new system cannot be here on top of the old system. So the old system is collapsing. I don't know how much you know about the 3D to 5D movement, the conscious level rising, the frequency and all of that. Do you know very much about it?
A little bit. I hear 5D all the time, 7D, 12D, 13. There's like all
Yeah.
these different Ds. But I mean, like as far as events like happen, especially in the US with the politics, like have you been giving any
Yeah.
information, or like can you give us any details about like what we can expect?
Well, I don't even know if any of that is true. All I do know is you've got to elevate your frequency in order to experience the good stuff and not be hurt by the bad stuff going on. You see, all the major players in the political field all over the world are single-mindedly having to fulfill an agenda. And this agenda, they're all puppets. As far as I'm concerned, there's a higher power that's moving all the puppet strings and telling them what to do. And they don't have a choice. And I don't think they're even consciously wanting to do it differently because they are part of that system. But all the other people like us, who are living on this globe, want to live peacefully and fulfill our personal missions as well as universal missions. We want to be good human beings, good citizens, loving people. We're being sabotaged because of the way the world is moving towards this big agenda. The 3D, 4D, 5D movement and all of that, I don't even play into that because I think a lot of it is people channeling. And I believe that people who channel, not everybody, not everyone, but majority of the people who are doing a lot of channeling work, they're channeling within the matrix. So what are they picking up? They're picking up what they're being told to pick up and spread the news, So I don't listen to any of that. I'm not saying it because I'm putting anybody down. Everybody's here doing their thing. I'm just not here doing that thing. I'm doing my own thing, just like they're doing their own thing. But a lot of the people, they kind of collect information from each other. I don't want to be doing that because that's not my information. I don't read books. I don't watch I've never learned anything from YouTube or picked up something that somebody had said, another therapist or another psychic. I just don't want to pick up somebody else's information. I want to pick up my own. And I trust only myself and my higher self. Why would I go externally to another channeler to take their information to make it my own?
How do you validate your truth? Like if you're not going outside of yourself for answers, like how do you validate?
It plays out, Trey. It plays out. I give it time. I never rush it, and I never question when will it happen. I know when I'm supposed to see it happen, it'll happen, but I know it's happening. For instance, let me tell you a story. My brother is one of my biggest supporters. He's a couple of years older than me, and he was in India when the World Cup, I can't remember what year it was a 2007 World Cup soccer in your terms. And I was narrating the final with Italy, and I can't remember who the other team was. This is how much I know about football. I didn't even know how many players played in a team, Trey. So I was completely ignorant. But I would remember I was ironing and watching the match because, it was on. And I was narrating, actually, literally telling him who's going to have the ball, who's going to do the goal, the next goal, what number 7, you know, uh, player was going to do. I was literally telling him everything. And then I was telling him there's going to be a penalty shootout because it's going to be a draw. All of that happened in real time. And my brother, I think that's the first time he actually completely believed what I was. I kept telling him, I know this, I know that. I was always the little sister that he kind of shut down. But it was that day that he started to really, really understand what I do. And it was all new to me too. But he is very aware politically. He knows what's what, and I don't. So whenever I get any information that makes no sense to him, I throw it to him. And I say, well, I got this. What do you make of this? And he'll explain it. Oh, my God, you're talking about South Africa. You're talking about this place. You're talking about that person who's going to topple. Okay, right. So he takes information that I give him, and then he makes sense of it. So no, it comes out like that. So when you say, how do you know it's happening? It plays out.
Sure. Well, where are you getting your information from? Like, if other channels are going and tapping into the matrix, like, what do you think you're tapping into?
I think I'm tapping into myself. I think that's where people tap in. Except when you are looking for an external method of getting information from an external source, like angels and things like that, you are tapping into something in the matrix who's coming out through to you as an angel, or coming through to you as something or someone that you think. I don't want to tap into anybody else but myself. I think we have all the knowledge.
Well, who's controlling the matrix?
Do you really want me to say on your show?
Yeah, 100%.
Ancient beings who are probably not all human. They have a lot of knowledge. They have a lot of know-how. They have a lot of technology that they kind of rely on. But one thing that they don't have the ability to create. Creativity comes from us human beings, and that's why they need us.
Well, who are the beings, right? Like you say, ancient beings who are not human.
I think the ancient beings are a mixture of so many other beings. I mean, they
beings on beings on beings. Like, so, I mean, are they in like any record of history, like documentation, like maybe the Bible? Like, are we talking about like Lucifer, Satan?
I think there's a lot of truth in things from the Bible, but there's been a lot of ingredients thrown in to confuse people who follow the Bible, or any religious text. It's difficult to say. I think there's a lot of things I'm still working through, because there's some things, Trey, you won't be told right now. There's some things I don't know. I can't say, I know everything. There are so many things I'm still learning. And religion is something that I have moved away from. There was a time when I got divorced from my first husband where, I'm Muslim by birth. I was praying 5 times a day. I was going to wear a hijab. But I asked for signs to show me if that was the right thing for me to do. And I was moved away. And that's when I really stood strong in my spirituality. I thought, no, the thing that's pulling me through is something else, something good. And some people say to me, look, maybe you're picking up stuff from the dark side. You're picking up stuff from the dark side. And I tell them, do you think I'm a good person? And they say, well, you're one of the best people. You're a good heart. You'd never harm anyone. You don't lie. And then I say to them, well, maybe I wouldn't have turned out so good if I was pulling in things from the dark side. I trust myself. And I know I'm a good person. I know I would never harm anyone. Even those who have harmed me, I kind of don't even want to think about anything bad happening to them. I kind of want the best for them, yeah.
Catrima, well, I've lost time here. I was in my little time warp as well, and I can't believe time is up. But like, how can people connect with you? How can they learn more about your work? How can they find you, message you, whatever?
Well, that's another thing. I'm not the traditional person with a website. People can find me on my Facebook. If they just put in Catrima, I have my Facebook profile there, which I get banned from quite often because I'm quite controversial there with all this stuff. But if you want, I can send you a link that you can put in your notes there. Of I don't have a website, but it's a little site where they can find out my services and things like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, is there anything on your heart that you want to share right now with the audience to kind of close this out?
Yeah, something that's close to my heart, which I say to every client that I see every day, um, just to move forward where we are now. We're in very tumultuous times. We're in very chaotic times. Just to get through this, it's not anything physical that you have to do. You don't have to go out and fight battles and wars. I think just try and raise your frequency. And when people ask me, well, how do I do that? I just say to them, live from your heart, live from your soul, and live your honest truth and be a good person. It's
I
not
love
that
it.
difficult. Yeah.
Love it. Catrima, thank you so much for taking the time today.
You're so welcome, Trey. It's good to be here.